So Lag BaOmer is considered the Matan Torah of the Pnimius HaTorah, of the innermost of the Torah, which is, of course, ultimately becomes manifest in Chassidus. So very appropriate that we're studying on the day afterwards on the essence of Chassidus. I'm coming to you live from Highland Park, New Jersey.
Oh,
Visiting
I'm also in Highland Park.
Huh?
I'm also in Highland Park.
New Jersey?
In Chicago.
Oh, Highland Park, Chicago. Okay. There are several of them. So we are going to continue on our amazing journey through the layers, all of the different layers of Pardes, and today we're going to get to the quintessential, to Chassidus, to the explanation according to Chassidus of the Moda'ani.
How is the Pardes connected to the Zohar?
Well, the Pardes refers to the four layers of understanding the Torah.
Right.
Right? So the Samech is Sod, and Zohar is the Sod component.
Okay.
Yeah. The esoteric, the mystical, shall we say. The mystical component.
Okay, thank you.
Is this from the printout that you wanted us to, is this what we're studying? The creative contributions of Hasidus?
Yes, I guess you could call it that.
What page are you? What is the name of the area that you're talking about today?
Oh, I see. So we're going to be the creative contributions of Hasidus. Actually, that's page 1. That's a heading.
Right.
Section 1. The whole work is called On the Essence of Hasidus, and we are on page 9.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
The second to the last paragraph, continuing. And I'm going to save the screen here. So we'll all be on the, literally on the same page, or you can follow in your hard copies. So we did the pshat, the simple meaning, and the remez. Let's go through them quickly. They're pretty short. So let's see, where to start? So the Moda'ani was instituted so that we could say thanks to God for giving us back our life right when we wake up. Last week we went into the Elokai Neshama prayer that was established that the Talmud says one should say. So just this paragraph on the bottom of page 8. To begin then our analysis, the subject of Moda'ani, according to Pshat, the plain meaning of the Torah, is giving thanks to God for having restored my soul within me. Though we make the blessing of Elokai Neshama for the restoration of the soul, it's necessary to say Moda'ani. The obligation to give thanks for the return of the soul applies immediately upon awakening. So basically, we want to say thank you right away. We want to express our gratitude immediately. And Elokai Neshama, since it has the blessing, it has the name of God. So therefore, we can't say that until we've already washed our hands. And the Moda'ani, we say even before that, immediately upon waking. So that's the simple meaning. The level of Sod, proceeding to the level of Ramez, the second level of Torah expounding. And that is the level of allusion. We say one thing, we're alluding to something else. Or intimated meaning. The idea of Moda'ani is that the restoration of the soul every morning alludes to the resurrection of the dead. So we are speaking of God, thanking God for giving us back our physical soul, but it's alluding to the idea that God will resurrect the dead altogether in the times of Mashiach. Whether that will happen right away or maybe in a subsequent era, as discussed in the holy writings. But the point is that ultimately God will bring about Tchiyat HaMetim, the resurrection of the dead. And so we're speaking clearly about giving us back our life this morning, but it's alluding to the God's faithfulness in bringing back life to those who have died in the time of Mashiach. Continuing the analysis further, now we're going to do the Drush, the homiletic expounded meaning. What does homiletic mean? Drush, basically, it's like something where there's going to be some kind of a message and takeaway. A lot of the medrash, which is, of course, medrash is from the word drush, is going to be a homiletic explanation where it says one thing, but we use it as a metaphor or as an archetype for a whole different idea. Susan, please speak up. You have to unmute.
Will we have this when Mashiach comes and God resurrects the dead? Will we have the same soul that we had before?
Yes.
Okay.
So just in short, people who have passed on had their soul inside of their body, right? So like we read in the Haftorah of Shabbos, of Passover, the story of the dry bones. So God recomposes the bodies, the physical material bodies, then infuses within them their soul. I mean, this might be a funny analogy, but it's like if you're upgrading your computer, right? So you have to upload all of the information, all of the software, everything into the cloud or onto another drive. You get another piece of hardware, and then you put your computer back in, and then you plug it in, and there it is. Same computer, upgraded. So,
Rabbi.
Yes.
It will not only be, from what I understand, the resurrection of it will include 7 Gilgulim of that person that will also be resurrected as well. These people who are being resurrected will also discover that their previous Gilgulim are also they'll identify them as well. Is I correct?
Well, I was not going to go there, but since you've opened up that can of resurrection, so the question becomes, so in order to understand what you're saying, first one needs to understand that according to Judaism, according to Kabbalah, certainly according to the Zohar, we are, and much more developed in the writings of the Arizal, we are all not resurrected, we are all reincarnated souls. In other words, the soul is this massive energy source, and it comes into the world once and again and again and again in order to complete the work of that one original soul. Okay, and this is the doctrine of reincarnation, Gilgulim, which is not exactly the same as how other religions speak about reincarnation. What it means is that an element of the soul comes into this body. So you and I, we are all an element of some larger soul. when we are resurrected, that the element that gives us life now, that's what's going to be resurrected. And I might meet my soul brothers. My soul brothers would be Yisrael Rice living as other people in different manifestations of the soul in different eras. So that's quite, so of course, all the Yisrael Rices in previous generations, they're all going to be resurrected, but their name wasn't Yisrael Rice. For instance, as you see on the screen, now my name is Rabbi Menachem Smith. So one person taking on many different personas, but I don't want to complicate it, but it's a funny kind of a thing, but we have many different aspects of who we have been in previous lives. Each one had an aspect of that core neshama. And that aspect of the neshama is what's going to be resurrected. So the bodies are all going to be resurrected. What are you going to do about the fact that there are many reincarnations? The aspect of the neshama that incarnated in that body is the one that's going to be resurrected.
I see. Thank you.
But every person after you adds or subtracts from the neshama, depending on his deeds.
There's no subtracting. It's like the power, just by way of analogy, like the power of a fire. As many fires as you light off.
It depends on his deeds.
It brings
to bad deeds. It would subtract from the value of his neshama.
So here's the nice thing that's explained about it. Okay, that when we're talking about the elevation of the soul, I'm probably breaking up here. Okay.
No, you're doing good.
I'm doing good. All right. So let's say that I have this pie that I need to elevate while I'm here in this world. Okay, that pie represents 100%. Now, many bad things were done, negative things. Okay, all of the sins. Those don't really get reincorporated. They don't get reincarnated. All there is maybe the result of that, which was some damage that was done and some opportunities not fulfilled. So the next soul is coming to complete what I did not complete. But the negativity of the action doesn't really transfer. The negativity of who I was does not transfer. Just the fact that if I mess things up, maybe there are more things that now need to be corrected. But
so why do they say that
evil itself is not transferred? I'm sorry, what?
Why do they say that the sons will suffer from the sins of the parents?
These are talking about, according to the Talmud, the sons that are still minors are still considered that they will be punished for and the sons that are older that will suffer. The rabbis say that's referring to those who have not done teshuvah, who have not repented, but continue in the ways of the father. So not only do they have their sins, but they also carry the burden of their father.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. A lot of these issues are, they're all over in Chumash, as well as in the Talmud, all discussed. And yeah. But basically, the whole idea of reincarnation is meant in order to allow every neshama to ultimately reach its potential. And if one person didn't do that, well, then there's going to be another incarnation for it to do that. I want to go further because this mimer, there are discourses of the Rebbe that speak about resurrection. This isn't one of them. Here, the Rebbe is just mentioning a small, this is a small point on the level of remez, the illusion. So pshat is simple. God is giving us back our soul. He's giving us back our life. Thank you. Very powerful. The level of remez, he's giving us back our soul now, and that's alluding to God's promise that he will resurrect all souls in the future. Okay, now we're up to the level of drush, the homiletics, which isn't a very helpful word because most people don't really know what homiletics is. I only know what it is because it's the translation of drush. So now the second to the last paragraph on page 9, continuing the analysis further according to Drush, homiletic expounded meaning, the interpretation of Moda'ani is that through the restoration of the soul every morning, as it says in Eicha Chadashim Labakarim, they are new every morning. So God returns to a person the soul which was entrusted to him. So every night before we go to sleep, we say, Biyadcha afkid ruchi. In your hands do I entrust my soul. So our soul we're actually putting it in a trust. That's an interesting thing. Even in the English language, we call it a trust, meaning that you don't have access necessarily, you don't have full access to it at this point. We're entrusting it to God. And God does not withhold it for the debts which the person owes to him. This act shows the great faithfulness of the Holy One, blessed be He. Great is your faithfulness, which basically means, are we owing to God? Basically, owing meaning there are things that we have not fulfilled that we should have fulfilled. There are things that we have done for which we have to maybe do teshuvah. So we're owing God. So let me ask you a question. If, let's say, Mordechai owes me $1,000, right? And now Mordechai comes. I was holding on to some valuable object of his. Let's say I had a valuable watch of his that I was holding on to for whatever reason. So now he had entrusted it to me, but he owes me $1,000, right? And now he's coming and says, Yisrael, can you please give me back my watch? So what some people might say is, hey, you know what? Give me back the $1,000 that you owe, and I'll give you back your watch. I'm holding on to a deposit of his, whether I took it as a collateral or not. And under many circumstances, I would be allowed to continue holding on to that. But now he needs the watch. Let's say he's going to an important meeting and he needs to make an impression. So I might say, well, you owe me $1,000. Give me the $1,000 you owe me and I'll give you back your watch. So if we owe things to God, God might say, well, you know what? I'm not giving you back your soul, although it's not exactly equivalent. But the point is that God gives it back to us with compassion. The compassion means even though we might be owing, and sometimes for certain sins that a person does, he's chayav mitah, he's even liable for the death penalty. In which case God says, I tell you what, let's just say we're even. I've got your soul, I've got your life, and that's it. And you owe me a life because of the act that you did. We'll call it even. So we say, no, God restores our soul within us with compassion. Great is your faithfulness. Now, last year, from this we expound and learn that a person should also be faithful and trusting in the same manner, and not withhold an article entrusted to him by another because of the debts owed to him. So should I give Mordechai back his watch? Yes. Even though he owes me $1,000, yes, I should have faith in him and I should trust him that he's going to fulfill his obligation, just as God trusts us every morning that we're going to correct it and we're going to do the teshuvah. We're going to pay, so to speak, for whatever it is. We're going to fulfill the obligations that we've made to him. Susan.
Yes, God, in other words, God is unconditional in giving us back our soul. There's no conditions. Is that correct?
This isn't quite the point that's being made here. Unconditional nature we're going to see in the interpretation of Chassidus. Here, there are still some, shall we say, there is a string attached here. The string attached is that God trusts that we're going to fulfill our obligation. So there is still that idea that we do, right? there's a level of responsibility, and it's important to understand that in Judaism, is our relationship with God a conditional one or unconditional one? Anybody you want to weigh in? The answer is both. The answer.
He's Avinu and
How could it be
Malkeinu.
both? How could it be both?
He's Avinu and Malkeinu.
Let me ask you a question. The relationship between a parent and a child is conditional or unconditional?
It has to be unconditional.
Is there a level at which the parent has expectations of a child?
Of course.
And is disappointed if they don't fulfill their obligation?
Yes, of course.
When they're younger.
That doesn't mean I don't love the child any less.
Right. The point, right. But there is a level at which that there might be consequences. If the child, right, if the child doesn't do their homework or is acting out.
We trust that God is not going to give us consequences that we can't manifest, or that we can't go up to the level. He's not going to give us something we can't handle.
Yeah, but Susan, Hashem is our Father and our King.
Both, yes.
So it's both relationships.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, that makes it more clear to me.
Thank you, Francine. All right, so that's right. So both of these are true, and both of these levels are true. At this point, we're talking about the fact that we do have an obligation, and God trusts that we're going to come through with what we're supposed to be doing. Now, does that mean that that's the whole extent of the relationship? No, but that is a layer of it, which, by the way, if you have a person in your life for whom you have absolutely zero expectation, one could argue that that's no relationship whatsoever. Right? We have an expectation. We have a certain covenant, and there are certain, shall we say, rules and expectations of that covenant. And that's what makes the relationship meaningful. Now, with a child, that's also true. Now, does that mean that there isn't a deeper level of connection that's beyond? Yes, but I think as human beings, it's helpful when we understand that a covenant has strings attached. You know, that's why we have the mitzvah of tzitzit. You know, tzitzit are the fringes that we wear on the corners of our garment, and it reminds us that no matter what you're doing in life, there's always strings attached. We think sometimes that there's no strings attached. And whatever a person is doing and thinking that there's no strings attached, guess what? Even there are strings attached. You just don't see them. You just don't understand them. And life is real, and our decisions are real. And if we have an opportunity to transform the world right now, today, and we don't do that, there is a repercussion. And that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. That's not there's a punishment, yes. But the fact that there's even a punishment is like a parent who punishes a child because they love the child. If they didn't care less, they wouldn't punish the child. This is not called parenting. But we're going to move from this, because soon we're going to see the explanation of Chassidus, which is going to give us somewhat of an altogether different perspective. But before that, first we have to do the fourth level, which is the level of Sod. And just to remind everyone that we're talking here about the four different levels of expounding the Torah. There's Pshat, which is the simple level, Remez, which is the saying one thing, alluding to something else, hinting to something else, the Drush, which is the homiletic, where there's going to be some level of the interpretive level, and Sod is the esoteric level. So the Pshat, simple, that corresponds to the Nefesh, the lowest level of the soul. Remez is the level of hinting, and that's the emotional level, which is very interesting, by the way, because, you know, sometimes you say something, but your emotions are going to reveal something other than what you said.
And that's what's guaranteed, you see, and Sukkot commemorates that.
Oh my gosh, I've got competition. Unbelievable.
The statement of the agreement of God. That only the
I've got to find my buttons here.
That
Phone class. Competition.
that we are now
All right, I'll get over it.
in the form of who?
There we go. So, you know how so sometimes we'll say something, right? Nah, it's all right. Is that an it's all right, meaning that it's all right? It's all right. That's an it's all right that's loaded with it's not all right, right? So our emotions oftentimes come out as a hint. Not the pshat would be more so the words. But the emotions come out are hinted to. So you might be saying one thing, but you're altogether revealing, not revealing, but evident are emotions. It's been said there's a whole movement of thought that explains that 90% of emotional communication is nonverbal. In other words, it's not the words that you're saying, it's the tone you're using and other body language that can be used. So the emotions are coming out, they're hinted to. So the level of getting back to our chart here, this is the level of ruach. It's the neshama level of ruach, which are the emotion. Rush that's the level of maybe interpretation. That's the level of neshama. The sod is the mystical, esoteric. And that's going to be the level of chaya. Right? So nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, called naranach. And the pshat, remez, drush, and sod are called pardes by their acronym. But just to keep us in line with all of the different layers the Rebbe is talking about. So now we're going to get to the fifth level. The fifth level is going to be Chassidus.
So are you skipping Chaya?
Did I miss Chaya? Sorry, let's go back to that. That is Chaya. The level of Sod is Chaya.
Oh, Sod is Chaya.
Then Yechidah is going to be the Chassidus.
Rabbi, don't you have one of your fancy charts with this all down?
A fancy chart with all of these levels?
Yes. I mean, that's what I'm used to seeing, not just what you just, wrote up there. Because I have that chart that you did for the...
Right. There's a lot more going on there. So that's going to be, I think, more confusing because of everything else going on. Because there you have the worlds and the letters of God's name. These are cross universes. I mean, these four levels exist as different universes, as different letters of God's name, as different levels of the soul.
What?
These are all 4/5 levels. And here I just want to focus on the 4 levels of the Torah expounding, 4 levels of Torah expounding, 4 levels of the soul, 4 levels.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Because I don't want to get lost in all of the other. But it does, you're right, it does correspond to all of it. But here I'm trying to focus us in on these 4. And now we're going to do the 5th. So the 4th level is going to be the penultimate. Now we reach the ultimate level. Oh, sorry, we didn't do the esoteric sod. So let's do the moda'ani sod. According to the esoteric part of the Torah, sod moda'ani is explained in the following manner. The words "living and eternal King" refer to the divine attributes of Malchut as it is united with the attribute of Yesod. So we have the 10 Sfirot, and you know what? I'm thinking if I should indeed bring up my my chart here. It might be useful now for the 10 Sfirot, but not for the rest of the chart. You know what? I think there's too much going on there. I want to speak about the 10 Sfirot a little bit in order to have a little bit of a better understanding of what's going on here. So when we talk about the 10 Sfirot, we have the intellect. That's Chachma, Bina, Dat. That's what we know. And then there is the emotions. Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod. That's how we feel about it. And ultimately, what all of these emotions are about is how to bring into execution, to action. So really, the 10 Sfirot are a paradigm of an operating system to ultimately bring to some function. There has to be some function or so we now say something. I'm now going to say some words. Those words are based on what I know and what I feel, and now I'm going to say these words. By way, that's really a massive simplification of the 10 Sfirot for you. But it's all geared towards how that which is me can communicate meaningfully with that which is you. How the innermost of me can now come to communicate with you. You have some people that are in their head. They are just in their intellect. And being just in their intellect, oftentimes they're not going to be very talkative. They have to be moved by what they know to want to share it. Sometimes people are emotional about what they know and they want to share it, and I wish they didn't, But the point is, in order for someone to push that which they know out, to speak about it to another person, you have to know something, you have to feel about it, and you say it. And when we're talking about on the divine attributes, this is the paradigm for God bringing about existence. So it wasn't just God communicating with us, but it was really God creating, bringing about existence from the very beginning. So the bringing about of existence comes through Malchus. Malchus we call kingship, it's royalty, but it's the power of the king to execute his plan. So he has his advisors, and each of them have different perspectives, different ideas. They feel differently about it, but ultimately it's in the hand of the king to make the decision. That decision is Malchus, and that's the word of Hashem, Devar Hashem. The Devar Hashem is the word of God. That is the level of Malchus. This is the way that God actually brings it into executive action, right? You know, executive, right? You have an executive director. What is an executive? Oh, he's an executive. Oh, fancy guy. He must have a nice suit if he's an executive. What does executive mean? Executive means executive. He executes. He has the power to do something. Then you have the chief executive officer, right? He can do anything he wants. He's the chief executive officer. But the idea of the executive is that to bring it about into actuality. How many times do we think about something, we feel about something, we can't quite get it done, we can't quite get it out, right? This is some level of executive dysfunction, right? Because it's how we get it into actuality. So this is very big, talking about creation, but how did God get the entire universe and physicality into existence, right? So these are the 10 Sfirot, is the paradigm for this process. Malchut is the 10th level. It's the level that actually brings it about into action.
It's the lowest level.
It's the lowest level, right? So I want to explain the lowest level means that it's the final level in God where he's able to bring it out to us. The thing, in other words, where can something outside of God receive from God? That's ultimately going to be through Malchus. Explained in other spiritual works, if you just by way of analogy, to have a sense of what this means and what this, to really have a sense of what we're talking about. So in other Kabbalistic works, it describes Malchus as the spigot, the faucet. Let's call it a faucet. You go to your faucet and you turn on your faucet and water comes out. Wow, that's amazing, right? We don't think about the reservoir. We don't think about the piping and all of the water pressure and the vacuum necessary for that water to flow properly and the water to be filtered and to be cleaned. There's a whole process involved. We just turn on our faucet and voila. It's amazing living in the 20th, 21st century, huh? We can just turn a faucet and get water. That is the level of Malchus. Malchus is the execution, the way that it now all comes about. Are you getting a sense of what Malchus means? So Malchus is the way that God, the place from which God decides to, and actually does, give us our neshama back every single day. That's from the level of Malchus. And in order for Malchus to work effectively, it is connected to Yesod. It's connected to the God persona. There's the God persona, that's from Yesod up, and then there's the way the God persona now projects down to the other, to the human persona, or to the world persona, and that's going to be Malchus. And now with this in mind, we might have a better understanding of this paragraph that we're about to describe in Chassid, of Kabbalah. The Kabbalah explanation, the explanation of Sod, of the Moda'ani. So now this paragraph again. According to the esoteric part of Torah, the Sod, Moda'ani, is explained in the following manner. We say Melech. Melech is which level? Malchut.
Malchut.
Right? And in the Moda'ani, we say Melech. Melech Chai V'Kayam. This refers to the divine attribute of Malchut as it is united with the attribute of Yesod, foundation. For the word Melech, king, indicates God's attribute of Malchut. And living and eternal Chai V'Kayam, that we say in the Moda'ani, Chai V'Kayam, living and eternal, that is his attribute of Yesod. And we say, living and eternal king, who has restored my soul within me, means that the restoration of the soul comes from the level of Malchut as it unites with the level of Yesod. Okay, that's it for the Kabbalistic. That's it for the esoteric. But what that means is that it's God giving us our soul the way that that malchut is connected to its source, and it projects downward to the world and to us and to my soul. So it's going to be a connectivity of my soul ultimately to the very source of sources. All right, Susan, you asked for it, you got it. We're gonna share the chart here. And maybe I can give you a little sense.
Thank you.
So in this chart, let's see if I can get it a little bit bigger. So each world has how many components?
Each world, 10.
Has 10 components. Exactly. So the malchut of each world is right here. You're able to see that?
No,
That I drew?
I still see the print.
Let me just do a little.
Can you send it to the chat? Can you send the
It's not. You're not going to see it on the. Can you see the two blue circles here?
No.
Oh, it's not coming through. Okay, let me try again.
You see you now.
Right.
There's the blue circles.
You see the two blue circles?
Yeah,
The world of Atzilus and the world of Bria.
Bria.
Focus on the world of Atzilus here, because this is really all happening in the world of Atzilus, in the world of divine consciousness, total divine consciousness. It has the 10 sefirot inside of them. These are the circles, the white circles in the world. So now we have Malchus. That's Malchus of Atzilus. And it's from that level that God issues forth our soul, but it's Malchus that connected with Yesod. You see, meaning that it's God connected to God himself. You know, sometimes we can give something to somebody in a way where we're not connected to ourselves and we're not giving it in a full and intentional way. You know, right? We give it, but we're not giving it the way that we're connected to our true desire and will. Malchus connected to Yesod, that's an esoteric idea. That's the level of Sod, talking about the 10 sefirot of holiness. But that has a very understandable meaning. It means God, the way that God is connected to his inner essence and desire. That is the Sod explanation of the Moda'ani. Okay, now we've done 4 levels: Pshat, Remez, Drush, and Sod. Pshat, thanks for my soul. Remez, thanks for resurrection. Drush, don't hold on to a deposit if somebody needs it. Somebody needs their deposit, even though they still owe you money, give it back to them. Learn from God. And the Sod, Malchus, is connected to Yesod. Malchus connected to Yesod is giving me my soul back every morning. 4 disparate explanations, right? Really 4 different ideas. Now we're going to see the beautiful message of Chassidus. The beautiful exposition of Chassidus. Reading exposition, which is based on the 4 levels of Pardes, Nefesh, which are Pshat, Remez, Drush, and Sod. They correspond to the 4 levels of the soul, Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, and Chaya of Torah. Elaborate upon various particular ideas in the thanksgiving of Moda'ani. In contrast to the great general principle. So Chassidus The Yechida of Torah comes forth to articulate the general comprehensive explanation by elucidating the quintessential point of Moda'ani, which comes from the level of Yechida from the person, within a person. We each have within us the fifth level of the soul, which is the essential soul, the way that our soul is directly connected with God himself. No strings attached because it's totally connected. Right? The true idea of unconditional and no strings attached is when two things become one. When two things become one, you don't need any strings, do you? And that's the level of Yechida. Remember we said earlier, the Rebbe said, you want to know what Chassidus is? I'll give it to you. One word. Right? Yechida. We got through it through Mashiach, that Mashiach is the Yechida of the Jewish people. But basically, and what is Mashiach all about? Yechida. This is what Chassidus is all about, Yechida. But now, what does that have to do with Moda'ani? The answer is everything. The answer is everything. We're going to see right now in this next paragraph, which is, if for whatever reason you haven't been focused, now this paragraph, you got to pay attention right now, this paragraph. According to Chassidus, the explanation of Moda'ani is as follows. We begin the order of the day with Moda'ani, which we say before washing the hands, and even with hands that are ritually unclean. Okay, let me explain this just momentarily. We spoke about this a little bit at the very beginning. Practically, Moda'ani was established because when we wake up in the morning, our hands are impure. Why are they impure? They're impure because they've touched parts of the bodies which are normally covered, and thus they become, according to Jewish law, they become unclean. They need to be washed. Also, when we wake up in the morning, there's a negative spirit that rests upon a person. And in the morning, with our consciousness, our full soul entering our body, it pushes out the negative spirit that rests upon the body. Now you know where all those funny dreams come from. And how does the negative spirit leave the body? Well, lo and behold, it leaves through our fingers. And as it leaves through our fingers, the fingers retain this a certain residual from this impure spirit. I'm not going to go into all of this right now, but I'm just giving it to you very much in short. So as we spoke about at the very beginning, but now is the point. This is the actual point where this Chassidic point is taught. Do you think, let's say you had a cup and a bowl next to your bed. Do you think that you should wash your hands first and then say the prayer, or first say the prayer and then wash your hands? Of course, you wash your hands first and then say the prayer. But the Rebbe brings out here, no. Moda'ani is something different. The point of Moda'ani is that it is uncontaminatable. Not able to be contaminated at all. It is coming from such a high and lofty place, such a place of profound internal holiness and absolute oneness with God that it cannot be contaminated. And thus, you don't wash your hands. Let's see it inside. We begin the order of the day with Moda'ani, which we say before washing the hands, and even with hands which are ritually unclean. You know why? Because all of the impurities of the world cannot contaminate the Moda'ani of a Jew. It is possible that a person may be lacking in one respect or another. These are, again, on all of the other levels of the soul. But his Moda'ani always remains perfect. This is a teaching of the previous Rebbe. It's actually, you can find it in Hayom Yom for the 11th day of Shvat, which coincidentally is the day that the Rebbe accepted upon himself the leadership of the Chabad movement. It was the 10th of Shvat, but it was really at night going into the 11th of Shvat. So the 11th of Shvat, that was the day that the Rebbe accepted the leadership, with the Rebbe's particular perspective in this leadership, which is really very much bound up with this teaching right here, and that is that every Jew has within his or herself this point of godliness which cannot be contaminated. And thus the Moda'ani is specifically recited before we wash our hands, because it is underscoring a level of divinity within us that cannot be contaminated. The Moda'ani, which is the Yechida, the simple thanks of a Jew to God. Thank you for giving. That's referring to the simple meanings, deepest, most perfect, simplest, uncomplicated, essential soul of the Jew, the Yechida of the soul, which cannot be contaminated, and therefore it's recited before we wash our hands.
Rabbi?
Yes.
What about the Nagelwasser?
Afterwards, we wash Nagelwasser.
Oh, afterwards. So it's not Netilat Yadayim, it's the Nagelwasser you're talking about.
The Nagelwasser and Netilat Yadayim are the same thing. You know what?
I thought Netilat Yadayim, you have to go up to the wrist.
Yes, that's what we do when we wash in the morning, even though...
But Nagelwasser is just for the nails.
No, that's what you'd think. That's what
It's the name.
I don't know why it's called Nagelwasser.
Yeah.
Because you're right, Negel means the nails.
Right.
Maybe you'd think you just have to do the tips of your fingers. Even on Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur, when we wash halfway, we wash until the joint of the finger to the hand. That's the least Nagelwasser that we do is goes far beyond the nails.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know why. I'll have to look into seeing why we actually call it Nagelwasser when in fact we should call it Handwasser. You don't have to wash your whole hand for Nagelwasser. It's the same as Netilat Yadayim. There is no distinction between the two.
Okay, thank you.
And this perfection and purity, how do we have this? How is there such a level within us of such sanctity, of such perfection, of such simplicity? It's due solely to the Yechida of the soul. Now we're at a level, Susan, of unconditional.
Rabbi, when the soul gets restored, how is it restored from one area to another, or just all at once when we wake up? When we first wake up? Am I being unclear? Or he's frozen? I think he's frozen.
His time on the computer went out. That was a hard question, Susan. You knocked him out.
I didn't. It wasn't intentional.
when you get your soul back, you get the perfect soul back, the one that you entrusted in God.
So in other words, it comes back all together at one time.
The way you entrusted it.
Right.
God.
Okay. That makes sense.
In any way, that's my take on it. But the reason I'm saying it is because you wouldn't want to say a blessing or say thank you for returning my soul if it's not the right one, you know, if it's not the one you entrusted. I think it is 3 o'clock. Oh no, just 1 minute.
I have 4 o'clock on mine.
You live in a different state.
I live in a different state of mind anyway.
No, in that case,
Touche, Bruce, touche.
Bye, y'all. Oh, it looks like he's coming back.
Yeah, he has a half a minute to go.
There he is.
Talk about a cliffhanger. I am so sorry about that. And Susan had a question, and then my computer, now I'm on a laptop and whatever.
I blamed Susan for it. I said the question was too hard. Right?
Well, you know, I like your question, answer to your question, I didn't know. So see, I can always say I don't know. But anyway, Susan, please, you had a question.
It was how does the soul come back? Does it come back the same all at one time, or from the top to the bottom? And Ben said it comes back the way I entrusted it to God from the night before. That's what Ben said. The soul comes back to you the way it was entrusted. That's what he said.
Interesting.
What do you say, Rabbi Rice? Maybe we should put this for next time.
Well, yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, clearly, the moment that we open our eyes, clearly we have the Yechida, because that's what we're expressing here, right? I don't know that, I don't know why we wouldn't have all of our levels at that same time. I've never seen that there would be a distinction made in this regard in terms of our soul connection. But the point here is clearly that the Yechida of the soul is what's being expressed here. Clearly we have the Yechida.
I also said that we wouldn't say Moide Ani if it was not the full soul that we got back.
Ah, interesting. Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Yisrael, you have your hand raised.
Add a comment that we're trying to apply here a physical concept to a metaphysical identity object, if you will. Okay, it's not something that peeks from your toes up to your head or vice versa. It's a metaphysical entity that has no physical form.
But I disagree, because sometimes I feel like I don't get everything back that I need, and then it comes back quickly. And then it comes, in other words, I'm half conscious, I'm half awake, and I'm
right. Everybody wakes up in an alpha state. And, you know, you don't have your full cognitive capacity about you yet. But I don't know if that's a problem with the software or with the hardware.
It has to do with the hardware.
The hardware, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Could be. All right. Well,
something else, Ben. You're something else.
All right. If there's any questions or comments, please, I guess we'll just quickly finish up. I apologize for that, the technical difficulty on my side. But
you did well, Rabbi. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining, and we'll see you, God willing,
Thank you, Rabbi.
next Wednesday.
Thank you, Rabbi. Stay safe, everyone.
Sure.